The umpire gets it wrong at the US Open. At least, that's what Clara Tauson believed when she exploded at chair umpire Kader Nooney, demanding answers while 8,000 fans booed her from the stands. One controversial call, one video review, one moment that would flip a match and history completely upside down. This is the story of Eala versus Clara Tauson, the match where everything went wrong for one player and everything became possible for another. August 27, 2024, Louis Armstrong Stadium at Flushing Meadows, the US Open. For most players, this is just another tournament, another chance to climb the rankings. But for Eala, this wasn't just another match. This was history in the making, 20 years old. Born in Manila, raised on courts across the world, Eala had spent her entire career chasing one dream: to represent the Philippines on the biggest stages in tennis. She'd won the French Open girls title in 2020. She'd climbed the rankings, fought through qualifiers, battled injuries and doubts. And now, finally, she stood on the precipice of something no Filipino player had ever achieved in the Open era: a main draw victory at a Grand Slam. But standing in her way was Clara Tauson, the 14th seed. A former junior world #1 from Denmark, powerful, aggressive, a player who had already proven she belonged at this level. Tauson wasn't here to be part of anyone's historic moment. She was here to win. The atmosphere inside the stadium was electric. Over 8,000 fans packed the stands, and the vast majority wore Philippine flags draped over their shoulders. They waved banners. They chanted her name. "Let's go, Alex! Let's go, Alex!" The sound echoed through the arena like thunder. This wasn't just a tennis match. This was a celebration. A national moment unfolding in real time. Eala fed off that energy. She came out swinging in the first set, her forehand cracking with confidence, her movement sharp and decisive. Tauson, clearly bothered by the noise and the pressure, struggled to find her rhythm. The Filipino fans roared with every point Eala won. They gasped at every near miss. They lived and breathed every single moment. Eala took the first set 6-3. The crowd erupted. It felt like the entire Philippines was watching through their screens, holding their breath, believing that maybe, just maybe, this was their moment. But Tauson wasn't done. Not even close. Champions don't fold after one bad set. They adjust. They fight back. And that's exactly what Tauson was about to do. As the players sat down for the changeover, Tauson leaned toward the chair umpire, Kader Nooney. She wasn't happy. She wasn't hiding it, and the storm that was brewing was about to explode onto center stage. What happened next would divide fans, spark debates, and turn this match into one of the most controversial moments of the entire US Open. Because sometimes in tennis, it's not just about who plays better. It's about who can handle the pressure when everything and everyone is against them. But first, the crowd had something to say. And Tauson? She wasn't going to stay quiet. The second set began, and something shifted. Clara Tauson had regrouped. She was hitting harder, moving better, dictating rallies with her heavy ground strokes. But more than that, she was angry. And anger, channeled correctly, can be fuel. Between points, Tauson marched to the chair umpire, Kader Nooney, and made her frustration crystal clear. The crowd was too loud. They were cheering during points. They were making noise while she was trying to serve. It wasn't just support for Eala. It was, in Tauson's mind, interference. Nooney agreed. He picked up the microphone and addressed the crowd directly, asking them to hold their applause until after the point was over. The request was met with boos, loud cascading boos that filled the stadium. The Filipino fans didn't come here to be quiet. They came here to will their player to victory. And they weren't about to stop now. But Tauson used that hostility. She fed off it. While the crowd might have been against her, she turned that energy into dominance on the court. Her serve picked up pace. Her returns became more aggressive. Eala, who had looked so confident in the first set, suddenly seemed rattled. The momentum had completely flipped. Tauson broke Eala's serve early in the second set. Then she broke again. The crowd's chants grew quieter. The confidence that had surged through Eala just 20 minutes earlier began to fade. Tauson was playing with precision and power, and Eala had no answers. The second set ended 6-2 in Tauson's favor. It wasn't even close. The Danish star walked to her chair with her head high, refusing to acknowledge the hostile crowd. She had silenced them, at least temporarily. Now it was anyone's match, one set each. Everything would be decided in the third. As the final set began, both players knew what was at stake. For Eala, it was history. For Tauson, it was respect, and a statement that she wouldn't be bullied by a partisan crowd. The tension was suffocating. Every point felt monumental. Every game felt like a war, and then Tauson started pulling away. She broke Eala's serve to go up 2-1, then 3-1, then 4-1. The crowd grew restless. The cheers turned to nervous murmurs. Eala was struggling and Tauson was relentless. At 5-1, Tauson was serving for the match. She was 3 points away from closing out the biggest upset of her tournament. 3 points away from silencing the doubters and proving she belonged among the elite. But then came the moment that would change everything. A moment that would spark outrage, confusion, and a debate that still hasn't been settled. A moment where the umpire had to make a call that would define the entire match, and depending on who you ask, he got it completely wrong. 1. Match point in sight, and then chaos erupted. It happened so fast. 1 second, Clara Tauson was cruising toward victory. The next, she was standing at the net, arms raised, shouting at chair umpire Clara Tauson in disbelief. Here's what went down. Eala hit a volley at the net during a rally. It was quick. It was instinctive. But to Tauson, something was wrong. Very wrong. She immediately stopped playing and marched toward the umpire's chair, pointing at Eala, gesturing wildly toward the net. Her racket crossed the net. Tauson insisted. She touched the net. That's a violation. The rule in tennis is clear. If your racket crosses the plane of the net and makes contact with the ball on your opponent's side, or if you touch the net during a point, you lose the point. Tauson was convinced Eala had broken that rule. She wanted the point. She demanded the point. Clara Tauson paused. He didn't make an immediate call. Instead, he did something that would escalate the situation even further. He called for a video review. The crowd held its breath. The big screens inside the stadium replayed the moment over and over from different angles. Eala stood at the baseline, watching nervously. Tauson stood near the umpire's chair, arms crossed, waiting for vindication. The review took what felt like an eternity. Seconds stretched into minutes. The crowd murmured. Tension hung in the air like smoke. And then finally, Tauson made his ruling. The ball was on Eala's side of the net when contact was made. Point to Eala, the stadium exploded. The Filipino fans erupted in cheers. But Tauson? She lost it, completely. She threw her arms in the air, shouting at Tauson in frustration. That's the wrong call. That's completely wrong. She refused to walk back to the baseline. She stood there, arguing, demanding an explanation, her face red with anger. The crowd began to boo. Not at Eala, at Tauson. The boos were deafening, relentless, a wall of sound that seemed to swallow her whole. Tauson stood there isolated, furious, convinced she had been robbed. In her post-match interview, she would later say, "It was definitely the wrong decision. My coach saw it. My physiotherapist saw it. Everyone saw it. But in that moment, the call stood, and Tauson had to serve. Except now, everything had changed. The momentum that had been so firmly in her grasp was slipping away. The crowd, once a distant annoyance, was now a roaring beast demanding her downfall. And the confidence that had carried her to 5-1 was starting to crack. She stepped up to serve. And then she double faulted, just like that. A gift of a point to Eala. The crowd went wild. Tauson's shoulders slumped. The unraveling had begun. Because sometimes in tennis, it's not just about the call. It's about how you respond to it. And Tauson, for all her talent and fight, couldn't recover from what she believed was an injustice. The question that would haunt the match and divide the tennis world was simple. Was the umpire right? Or did one bad call cost Clara Tauson the match? 5-1 became 5-2, and then the collapse began. Momentum in tennis is a fragile thing. It can build slowly, point by point, game by game, but it can also shatter in an instant. And for Clara Tauson, that instant came the moment Cater-Nooney ruled against her. She double-faulted on the very next point after the controversial call. Not a close serve. Not a missed line. A complete unforced double fault. The crowd roared. Eala, who had looked defeated just moments earlier, suddenly found life. She pumped her fist. She bounced on her toes. The belief came flooding back. Tauson tried to regroup, but it was too late. The damage was done. Her serve, which had been so reliable throughout the match, was now betraying her. Her footwork, once sharp and aggressive, became hesitant. She was playing scared. Playing not to lose. And in tennis, that's when you lose. Eala broke serve. 5-2. The Filipino fans were on their feet, screaming, waving flags, willing their player forward. The noise was overwhelming. Tauson could barely think. She looked toward her box, searching for answers, but there were none. She was alone out there, drowning in the chaos. Eala held serve to make it 5-3. Then she broke again to make it 5-4. The crowd was delirious. What had seemed impossible, coming back from 5-1 down against a seeded player, was suddenly within reach. Tauson's lead had evaporated. Her confidence was shattered. And the match, which she should have closed out 10 minutes earlier, was now slipping through her fingers. At 5-5, both players sat down for the changeover. The scoreboard told the story. Tauson had served for the match at 5-1 and failed. She had let a 4-game lead disappear in the span of a few devastating minutes. Eala, on the other hand, had clawed her way back from the brink. She had survived the hostile umpiring decision from Tauson's perspective, or benefited from the correct call from the crowd's perspective. Either way, she was still alive. The third set would be decided by a 10-point tiebreak. First to 10 points, win by 2. Everything on the line. One player chasing history, the other trying to salvage a match she had dominated for so long. Tauson tried to reset. She tried to find the version of herself that had dominated the second set and built that 5-1 lead. But the mental scars were too fresh. The crowd was too loud. The controversy was too heavy. And Eala? She was playing like someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. The tiebreak would be a war. A brutal, emotional, agonizing war that would push both players to their absolute limits. And when it was over, only one would be left standing. The other would be left wondering what could have been, and whether one call really did change everything. The tiebreak. 5 match points. A nation held its breath. The 10-point tiebreak began, and immediately Eala took control. She played with freedom, with aggression, with the kind of fearlessness that only comes when you've been counted out and refuse to quit. She ripped forehands down the line. She charged the net. She played the points of her life. Tauson, meanwhile, was fighting ghosts. Every serve felt heavy. Every shot carried the weight of what she had lost. The lead, the momentum, the belief. She was still competing, still trying. But the fire that had burned so bright in the second set had dimmed. Eala surged to an 8-4 lead in the tiebreak. She was 2 points away from history. The crowd was standing, screaming, waving flags, chanting her name. The noise was deafening. It felt like the entire stadium was shaking, but Tauson wasn't done. Not yet. She dug deep, found something inside herself, and started clawing back. She won the next point. Then another. Then another. A 5, 8-6, 8-7. The crowd grew nervous. Eala's body language shifted. Doubt crept in. At 8-8, the momentum had swung again. Tauson, the player who had been broken and demoralized, was suddenly fighting for her tournament life. She had crawled back from the edge. And for a brief moment, it looked like she might complete the comeback of all comebacks. Eala earned her first match point at 9-8. The crowd held its breath. Tauson saved it with a powerful serve. 9-9. Eala earned another match point at 10-9. Tauson saved it again with a gutsy forehand winner. 10-10. The tension was unbearable. Both players were exhausted, emotionally drained, running on pure adrenaline. At 11-10, Eala had her third match point. Tauson saved it. 11-11. The crowd was losing their minds. Every point felt like a final. Every shot felt like the last one either player could give. At 12-11, Eala earned her fourth match point. The rally was long, grueling, both players scrambling from corner to corner. Tauson hit a backhand into the net. But wait, Eala had hit the ball long before that. Tauson's point, 12-12. And then, at 13-12, Eala earned her fifth match point. This time there would be no escape. Tauson's return sailed long. The ball hung in the air for what felt like forever. And when it landed beyond the baseline, the stadium erupted. Eala collapsed to the court, her hands covering her face. She had done it. She had won. After saving a 5-1 deficit, after fighting through 5 match points, after battling the pressure, the controversy, and the weight of an entire nation's expectations. She had made history. She became the first Filipino player to win a main draw match at a Grand Slam in the Open era. The crowd rushed the barriers. Flags waved. Tears flowed. It was a moment that transcended tennis. It was a moment of national pride, of perseverance, of refusing to give up when everything seemed lost. But across the net, Clara Tauson sat in her chair, staring at the ground. She had played her heart out. She had dominated for long stretches. And she believed, with every fiber of her being, that she had been robbed by one bad call. One moment, one decision that changed everything. History was made. But the controversy was far from over. The handshake at the net was brief. Professional, but cold. Clara Tauson congratulated Eala, but her face told the story. She was devastated, angry, heartbroken. In her post-match interview, Tauson didn't hold back. "It was definitely the wrong decision," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "My coach saw it. My physiotherapist saw it. Everyone in my box saw it. Her racket crossed the net and touched the ball on my side. That should have been my point. And honestly, I think the crowd and the pressure influenced that call." She went on to describe the atmosphere as one of the most hostile she had ever experienced. The crowd was screaming during points, cheering my mistakes, making it impossible to focus. And then that call happens at 5-1, and suddenly everything changes. I don't want to take anything away from Alex, but I believe I won that match. The tennis world exploded with debate. Social media lit up with replays, frame-by-frame analyses, and heated arguments from both sides. Some believed Tauson was right, that the video review showed Eala's racket crossing the net before making contact. Others defended the umpire's decision, arguing that the ball was still on Eala's side when she made contact, making the shot legal. Tennis analysts dissected the moment endlessly. Some pointed to the angle of the camera, suggesting it created an optical illusion. Others noted that even if the call was wrong, Tauson's collapse afterward was her own responsibility. "You can't blow a 5-1 lead and blame it entirely on one call," one commentator said. "Champions find a way to close out matches." Meanwhile, Eala was celebrating a moment she had dreamed of her entire life. In her post-match interview, she was emotional, humble, and proud. "To be Filipino is something I take so much pride in," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Representing my country on this stage in front of all these fans, it's everything I've worked for. This win is for every Filipino out there who believed in me." The Philippine sports community erupted in celebration. News outlets called it the greatest moment in Filipino tennis history. Social media flooded with tributes, videos, and messages of support. Eala had become a national hero overnight. But the question lingered. Was the call correct? Did the umpire get it wrong? And if he did, does that diminish what Eala accomplished? Here's the truth. We may never know for certain. Video review in tennis isn't perfect. Camera angles can deceive. Human judgment, even with technology, has limits. What we do know is this. Cater made the call he believed was correct based on the evidence he had. Tauson believed it was wrong. Eala fought back from 5-1 down and won the match. Whether the call was right or wrong, one thing is undeniable. This match became legendary because of the controversy, the emotion, and the stakes. It wasn't just about tennis. It was about pressure, resilience, and how a single moment can define a career. Clara Tauson will always believe she should have won. Eala will always celebrate the fact that she did. And the rest of us? We're left with one of the most dramatic, controversial, and unforgettable matches in recent US Open history. So here's the question for you. Was the umpire right? Or did one call change the course of history? Was this Eala's moment of glory or Tauson's stolen victory? This match had everything: tension, drama, controversy, and a historic ending that will be remembered for years. Eala proved she has the heart of a champion, fighting back from the brink when everything seemed lost. Clara Tauson showed incredible skill and determination, but learned the brutal lesson that in tennis, momentum can turn on a single moment. Whether you believe the call was right or wrong, one thing is certain: this is the kind of match that reminds us why we love this sport. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most controversial matches of the year, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story from the world of tennis. Drop a comment below. Do you think the umpire got it right or did Tauson get robbed? Let's keep the debate going.